Redditors who have nearly been murdered but talked your way out of it, what did you say to your would-be killer that saved your life? I almost got knifed in the Dominican Republic by these two kids in this tiny town. Bailhibe. They saw me walking around at night and came to my hotel with knives. I was out on the balcony in front of my room and they come up to me not saying a word but brandishing large enough knives. So I put my hands up and real cool like reached in my pocket and handed them like $200 local currency and they ran off. The kicker is, my wife was in an unlocked room right there with like maybe $2,500 and all of our crap. And I made enough noise about it talking calmly, but loudly enough, that I heard the door lock. Thank God. My first thought was, okay they want money. My second was, what if they get in that room with my wife? That second question still fricks with me. Anyways, so this town is small and I walked over to the police station and explained what happened and the cops are like, oh yeah we probably know who it is. Come back tomorrow morning at 9 and we'll have you identify them. Came back at 9 and they had both of them in custody. It never did get my money back. But whatever. Police in on it. Tourist scam. I'm not entirely sure how close I was to being murdered. This took place back when I worked the register at McDonald's. It was around 10. We weren't 24-hour and would be closing up soon. And in walks a guy that's drunk off his butt. He comes up to the counter and starts chatting with me about nothing in particular. Mostly nonsense I can't remember but I started to get the impression he wasn't just drunk. I'm doing my best to just humor him, waiting for him to leave when out of nowhere he says, if I was gonna kill everyone in here, I'd kill you first because you look like you'd know what to do. A bit of a morbid joke I thought and said thanks. At this point he pulled out a gun from his waistband and pointed it at me. It wasn't like a full-on point, more like he was limply holding the gun in my general direction. I didn't know what to do and only hoped to God he was still joking. He then said bang and tucked the gun back into his waistband. I think that he just wanted to let me know that he could kill me if he wanted to. He left shortly after that. I informed my manager and was later told that man was both a regular and longtime friend of my manager, who tried to downplay what had happened. I left that job shortly after for school. Cousin with mental health issues threw a table at me, but missed. He grabbed the leg and put me to the ground and shouted, I'm gonna freaking kill you, smash your skull. I responded with, if you're going to do that, let's not do it in front of our family. Slightly different based on his medical mental condition, but for some reason that brought him back. I don't know if he wanted to murder us, but was definitely up to no good. My mom and I were just walking somewhere. I don't remember to where, I was much younger, but it was in the south of France somewhere. There was a guy who came around the corner and got in our way telling us he has a gun in his pocket, probably BS, and that we needed to give him everything to pass. My mom grew up in Paris and walked through shady parts when she was younger and knows how to react, so she just straight up told him no thanks, slapped his shoulder a little to push him out of the way and we went by him. Give me everything you got. I have a gun. No, thanks. Not me but my dad. He was about 25 at the time, probably 35 years ago now. He lived in a bad neighborhood and after getting a pack of cigs from a 7/11, he was sitting in his car for a second and a young guy came up to his window with a gun. My dad said he said give me all your money or I'll kill you right here, right now. He said look, I have $30, and frankly, that freaking money is mine. You're going to have to kill me for it. Is it worth the blood of a human and most likely life in prison for $30 freaking dollars? He said the guy had this type of well whatever attitude about it. Gave him a goodbye tap on his car like he just came up to say hello, and walked away. He said the guy was really casual about it. Oddly so. He didn't sleep well for a few months after that experience. You know you aren't suited for a criminal life when you give the person you decided not to murder a goodbye tap on the window. One time, my mother was driving down to Tanzania with my uncle while she was pregnant with me. It was early in the afternoon, so she was extremely shocked to find a bunch of armed robbers waiting on the side of the road, like a bunch of hyenas waiting for their prey to come to them. They started waving their guns around, telling my uncle and mother to come out of the car. I believe that they had the intention to kill. However, this is where it gets interesting. The leader of that gang took one look at my mother's belly, saw that it had a bump, and simply let them go away. My mother tells me that when the leader saw that she was pregnant, his eyes filled with remorse. Maybe he had been a former father as well. Anyway, they took my uncle's wallet and bade us goodbye. To this day, I keep on telling my uncle that I saved his life. Former father is a very sad phrase. I was babysitting for my cousins, aged 5 and 3. I was 14 at the time, and the 5-year-old found his dad's handgun and was waving it around like a toy. He was pointing it at things and pretending to shoot them, not putting his finger on the trigger thankfully, and at one point he pointed it at me and pretended to be a bank robber. I told him if he handed me the gun he could go get the package of Oreos on the counter and we could have some. It actually worked, and I stuck the gun on a high shelf until my aunt and uncle came home. As it turned out, the gun was loaded. My aunt made my uncle buy a gun safe and put all the guns in the garage after that. TLDR. For the love of God, don't leave your firearms where your young children can find them. No matter how much you tell them it's not a toy, they will still treat it like a toy. I think he technically got robbed at gunpoint for Oreos. My friend's mother was bringing in the groceries. As she was walking the bags up the stairs, she turned to find a man who had snuck into the garage after her car, pointing a rifle at her. "SHHHH," she said, with a finger to her lips. "You have to get out of here. You're going to be in big trouble." He looked around, panicked, and ran. When I was 22, I had a gun put in my face because I was drunk and probably hit on his GF. I apologized and told him he's a lucky guy. IDK how that worked. People are so unpredictable, it's scary. You hit on his GF and he pulls out a freaking gun. Was walking home from work at a pizza place. 2 guys approach me wielding knives. I'm wearing headphones so can't hear what they said, but I assume it had to do with them taking my crap. I throw my pizza box at the first guy, frisbee style, throw my drink at the second guy, normal style, and take off running. Didn't talk my way out except for the "oh frick" when I realized what was happening, but still crazy. What if they were walking past you and you just randomly launched a pizza at them? I talked my way out of getting stabbed when I was being robbed. I don't know if he would have murdered me, but definitely would have fricked me up. I just told him to chill and put the knife away and he could have whatever the frick he wanted. So he put his knife away and went through my crap while I stood there annoyed. I went for breakfast with a girl right after and carried on with my day. Whoa, just wait a minute. That's what I said to the guy who just slammed me face first into an ATM and drew a knife on me as I staggered to my feet. I kicked him and ran out of the bank's vestibule. By the way, he went to prison. Thanks Ada Heinrich. I'm sorry that this happened to you, but I love this story in the coda. I'm 19. First time in Europe. Started in Italy visiting relatives, and first night I went out for a walk. Group of guys looking like trouble pushed me around and then showed me their knives demanding money, which I seemed to obviously have since I stood out as a foreigner by my clothes. Except all I had on me was $20 and a condom because I was so naive from hearing how easy it was to get laid. I was expecting local girls to just see me and approach me to have sex. So I explained this to these guys in broken 1960s Italian gleam from my parents. They laughed their butt off and wished me luck. Everyone knows it's bad karma to kill a virgin without preparing the ritual first. I was accosted by a young kid with a gun. He couldn't have been more than 13. I can't remember the exact conversation, but basically, the kid looked at me and said, "Give me anything you have, and I'll let you go." I wanted to freak out, but something in me said to remain calm. I said something like, "Is that a real gun or an airsoft?" and he pulled out the clip. Sure enough, it was real, surprisingly. I said, "Look, kid, I don't have anything but $5 and this crappy phone that isn't going to really get you anything. Is this really worth life in prison if you shoot me?" He looked at me, looked at the gun, looked at me, started crying, and turned around and walked away. I did call the police and alert them that there was a kid walking around 14th Street brandishing a firearm, but by the time they got to where I was, the kid was long gone. I pointed the cops in the direction he went and what he looked like and all that stuff, but I'm not sure whatever came of it. You totally IRO'd that kid. I was once in the drive-thru of a Las Vegas Jack in the Box that was being robbed. I pulled up to the window and this guy inside the window points a .45 at my face and says, "You better get the frick out of here, homie." I was so shocked that the only thing I thought was, what about my tacos? My best friend growing up had an uncle with a bad temper that, along with severe little man syndrome. Anyways, I was leaving her house one night after we'd hung out and studied together for school. While I walked around the cul-de-sac she lived on, I was grabbed from behind and whoever it was trying to put me in a headlock. I could tell they were much shorter than me. I was nearing 5 feet 10 by the time I was 14, and this person couldn't have been more than 5 feet 5 at the maximum. Naturally, I put my chin down to stop them and flipped the sucker over my shoulder using everything that I had. I looked, and lo and behold, it's the fricking uncle. I asked him, "What the frick, man?" and he said, "Don't fight me and it won't hurt so bad." I was terrified, but I knew this guy, so I said, "Come on, what's this about? Why are you doing this?" He did nothing but growl, and the look in his eyes said that he wasn't backing down. He'd recovered pretty quickly from my flip, but I swung my book-filled backpack when he charged me at his face, and he just hit the ground after that. I ran back to my friend's house and told her dad everything. He went back out and beat the crap out of his brother. I wasn't allowed to go to her house ever again after that. That's fricked, but absolute props to the dad. Didn't happen to me, but my dad was getting gas in a particularly sketchy part of town that he wasn't usually in. A man approaches my dad as he is filling his gas tank, points a gun at my dad and shouts, "Give me your wallet." Instead, my dad pulls the gas nozzle out of his truck and sprays the guy. At the time, my dad smoked and pulled out his Zippo lighter and begins to strike it. The best part is that the robber called the police on my dad for trying to light him on fire. In the end, my dad got away with nothing and the other guy got hauled away in a police car. Your dad could beat up my dad. Not sure how much this counts, but here we go. When I was little, we lived next to an honest-to-God psychopath serial killer in training. She was probably about 11 and I was 5 or so. She killed tons of animals, used to make me watch, did random crap to torture me, etc. I told my mother some of the crap she did, but she was convinced I was making it up. Apparently, it's difficult to believe some 11-year-old is shoving wires down kids' throats and drowning puppies, especially since she was female. Once, she was pulling me along in a little red wagon and just kind of stopped behind a car that was parked on the curb. I was totally oblivious at the time, but she made sure no one could see us and then waited for a car to shove me out in front of. Luckily, the car wasn't going too fast and stopped before hitting me. My mother finally believed me when she caught little Miss Murderer beating the ever-living heck out of a toddler one day. She had him pinned against the wall on the side of the garage where no one would see and was just choking and punching him. My mother was sure she would have killed him if she hadn't caught her. Kid apparently ran off while my mom was chewing the serial killer's butt, but nothing else ever came of it. I'm absolutely certain that she's either dead or has killed someone. Those are the only two possible outcomes. Whoa, that is seriously freaky. I wonder how she went down this path. This is actually not my story, but my boyfriend's. Some men broke into his childhood home while he, his brother and his mother were all there and made them get on the ground asking where someone was. Turns out the neighbor was a drug dealer and they got the house wrong. They threatened his family, but then figured out they were in the wrong house and left, stealing on the house wireless landline. Oddly enough, they didn't take cell phones. I just agreed with him. He called me every horrible name, accused me of doing horrible things. Most if none of it made any sense. I just agreed with it all. I apologized over and over. He was trying to strangle me to death. Eventually I got away and he chased me around the house. I just agreed with him till he lost steam and went back to bed. Blackout drunk ex-husband. I put quotations on blackout because he later claimed he was when he attacked me and had no memory of it. I told him what happened, but I lied about one detail to see if he'd correct it. He corrected me. He was lying about not remembering it. Well, a liar, and on top of that he was stupid. Well played and glad you are okay. Thank you to everyone who is commenting with their stories. I'm glad you made it to the other side of what you went through. Stay safe out there. The people who can't comment also made it to the other side. An Iraqi police officer, who I had been training for 4 days, He was mad at me when he thought his beef stroganoff had pork in it. I tried to explain through an interpreter to no avail. He was the youngest and biggest in the bunch, and I think was peer pressured into confronting me. I told him that if he didn't go back to his room, eat and be quiet, that I would destroy him. Bad idea. He came back to our guard shack a few hours later with a sword, a ceremonial saber from the wall of an office in our compound. He had the look in his eyes, bloodlust. I stood up, woke the terp up and said, tell this dude that if he stabs me with that, I might be hurt, but I'll survive, and be a hero for killing him after. Translating, more tell him to get the frick out of here or I will stop feeding him for the next 2 weeks. Translating, then the kid went back to bed and me and my buds had a good laugh. He apologized to me after he graduated. The ironic thing, if I recall correctly, is that if a Muslim eats something that has pork or alcohol in, but they don't know, then it's not held against them by Allah. Not particularly exciting, and barely qualifying, but I was thinking about the situation earlier tonight, so it's on my mind. A Suicidal so turned the shotgun towards me for a long second during his ranting and waving of the shotgun around. Because he was so intent on his own demise, I simply ran out the door into the yard and left him to do whatever he wanted to do with the gun. I am not proud that I left him alone in that state, but I could not envision a single scenario where me, him, a loaded shotgun, and close quarters ended with anything except both of us dead. He did surrender the gun as soon as the cops arrived. I had called 911 at least 10 minutes prior when he was still in the pills and car exhaust phase of the suicide attempt. The gun only came out much later, once he realized I had called 911. Not my favorite night to remember. Not particularly exciting. Proceeds to tell story of a madman waving a shotgun around. Don't know if this counts as almost being murdered, but finished up at a club one night at about 2 AM, was 22 at the time, was standing down the street from the club waiting for a cab with a friend, when we were approached by an indigenous guy, Australia. Held a knife up to my chest and was told to hand over cash and cigarettes. I hadn't been smoking, so that was weird. Was so drunk I just laughed, pushed him away and told him to frick off. He just sort of stood there dumbfounded for a second and then walked off. The friend I was with freaked out a bit but she eventually calmed down. Woke up in the morning and was a little shell shocked when I remembered what had happened. My ex tried to kill me. I am still not completely sure what I said that finally made him stop beating me. I still think it was just someone looking over me that day. He all of a sudden just backed off and started hitting himself instead. I don't know. He was insane. I had just gotten off my apartment security job at a ghetto complex. As I walked to my car, a drug dealer was standing in front of it. He saw me and pulled a firearm out of his waistband and put it to my head. I looked at him and looked at the people around him. He was 10 feet from a pool full of parents and kids. Everyone was watching. I looked him in the eyes and said, "Do it if you want. I'm just a guard and I'm off duty. I don't give a frick what you're doing here. This is just overtime for me. But look around. There's at least 20 witnesses. Someone will talk." I opened my car door and got in. He put his gun back in his waistband, got in his bicycle and left. I drove as fast as I could home and changed my boxers. Not my story, but someone my girlfriend knows said he was in his car when a guy came up and pointed a gun at him demanding his stuff. He said he threatened to have a heart attack and the guy with the gun proceeded to stop and call 911 for him. He took that opportunity to flee in his car and call the cops right after. Apparently the cops were able to catch the guy who held him up just shortly afterwards. I don't know if this guy was going to murder us, but it was super sketchy. My mom and I were walking back from a baseball game one summer after I got back from college. My mom had had a few, so I was driving. On the way back some sketchy dude started following us. I took a turn towards our car in a parking lot and he started muttering things. I told him to go away but he ignored me. I gave my mom my shirt I got at the game and told her to run to the car. The dude then lunged at me after she took off, so I body slammed him, and he landed on his butt, and I ran to the car, locked it and we flew out of there. That was a scary yet exhilarating moment and we just drove home after that. I live near a pretty bad city so things like this are expected, so we saw no point in calling the police or the stadium security, but it was frightening nonetheless. Nearly been murdered is maybe a bit over exaggerated, but I was surrounded by 10 neo-Nazis with baseball bats once. They were known to sometimes just beat the crap out of people for fun. But I was drunk as frick, so I just laughed all the time while they did stupid stuff like pushing me. So they had their fun and then let me get into my taxi without beating me up with baseball bats. Oh, they were nice neo-Nazis. That's lucky. My brother was attacked in our house by a guy with a knife. My brother didn't know the guy had a knife when he put the guy in a headlock. When he whistled for dad, the guy dropped the knife and covered his ear. By the way, my brother can whistle at about 120 dB, louder if he's angry. So, my brother pulled the guy's hand off his ear, put his mouth down to the guy's ear, and just whistled as loudly as he could 4 or 5 times. When dad got to them and threw the guy out the door, the guy couldn't even stand up straight as his equilibrium had been thrown completely off. He's probably still deaf. What a freaking rad superpower to have. Dude's a freaking X-Men. Was on a cruise at age 13, and I made friends with some older guys. Youngest was 17, older ones were early 20s. In hindsight, they were obviously up to no good, but being naive and feeling cool as heck, I spent a lot of time hanging out with them, often late at night. One night we were on the top deck at around 3 AM. Kota, the youngest and who I was closest to, was not there tonight. They were drunk and I was just tagging along, not drinking. And one guy decided it would be funny to draw on me with permanent marker. They closed me off, surrounding me so I couldn't leave without jumping off the ship. They moved from drawing inappropriate things in visible places, forehead, neck, to drawing inappropriate things in not so appropriate places and began to lift my shirt. One picked me up because I was struggling, lifted me over a railing. I just said, "Come on guys, knock it off." Kota, the younger friend, would be really pee if you guys do this. One of them had a sudden moment of clarity and got me to be put down. He told me to go and I did. Never told anyone what really happened except for my girlfriend and a few close friends. God knows my family doesn't know. Kota sounds like he was pretty nice if he was going to defend you. You'd better pray to God that's bigger than a .38 or I'm gonna beat you to death while I bleed out. I was very drunk. I have no idea why I'm still alive. That'd make a great movie line. Not me. My great grandma was being held at knife point. Noticed the threat had brought his dog along. Decided to say, "That's a pretty little dog you got there." And then the person dropped the knife and talked about his dog. This is actually kinda cute. I had just closed down and locked the office up. It was around 9 and almost everything is closed. Almost meaning there is a bar open down the way. I park in front of that bar on purpose every morning because it's always open and pretty busy. I'm walking down the empty street and start rounding the corner where the bar is when someone calls me from behind. Creeper guy. "Excuse me, miss? I'm sorry to bother you but I haven't eaten all day and I'm starving." Me. "Still trying to round the corner. If you're hungry there's a bar down the way. I can buy you something there." Creeper guy. "Nah, that bar is expensive. I'd feel bad. There's a fast food place on the other side of this street though. Super cheap. Really close." Me. Rounded corner and getting into view of bar. "I don't care about the price of the food. Knows for a fact the other side of the street is a dead end alley. If you're hungry I'll feed you. But we go where I say." Creepy guy then grabbed my arm trying to force me away from view of bar and towards the alley. I screamed to let go of me and used all my strength to stomp at his foot and push me away from him to get to the front of the bar. I screamed, "Let go of me." I don't know this man and a group of bikers stood up from their outdoor table and the creep bolted. Don't know what he had planned for me but I knew he wasn't planning on me making it. One thing about bikers is nobody really wants trouble with them. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.